Let's see. I think we're live. Wave. Okay, so because it usually takes a few minutes for people to get online here and start asking questions, this is a completely spontaneous broadcast. So nobody knows we're doing this, but I do like to do this every year around Father's Day. And we're just going to have a general Q&A about some of the telescopes that are on the market. And I'm going to go over some of the things to look for in a beginner telescope or a telescope for dad, and hopefully we'll cover every budget here. So let me just organize our stream here. Oh yeah, this is Miss Stargaze, otherwise known as Jennifer. I'm John, and let's just dive right in. I'm going to organize some of the stuff over here with the streaming software.
I'm going to scoot off screen.
Jen's going to scoot off screen. You can ask your questions. She'll be monitoring the chat, and she will answer your questions. If you can hear us, please let us know in the chat, and we will go from here. All right, so first thing on my list of things to do is, while people get logged in here, we are going to go over basically the parts of what makes a good beginner telescope at an entry-level price point. It's a key distinguisher there, because not everyone has thousands of dollars to spend on their first telescope or on a telescope they are buying as a gift. This is a telescope I've been recommending quite a lot because it's basically the telescope that meets all the minimum requirements. And this is the NeXYZ. The place where most people are getting this telescope is from Costco. It's generally priced around $200. Some people have got it as low as $99. They don't advertise it online. And I'm not sponsored. I'm not currently sponsored by Celestron for this video. Not sponsored by Costco either. But it is interesting that this has been the best basically value in a telescope for under about $500 right now. Maybe under $400. Anyway, okay. I'm gonna get my business card here because I have my list of what makes a great telescope in the back of my business card, which I think is always kind of handy. So I'm gonna go in that order. Okay. So the first requirement for what makes a beginner telescope, what makes a good beginner telescope, is the aperture. So the aperture is the diameter of the lens, or in the case of a reflecting telescope, the mirror. So you want this diameter to be at least 4 inches or 100 millimeters. And usually that's in the name of the telescope. So here, this is the NeXYZ 102. That 102 is the diameter of this lens, of the primary lens. And you want that number to be over 100. So that's the first requirement. And that eliminates a lot of, or it filters out a lot of the beginner telescopes or telescopes that are marketed as beginner telescopes that aren't actually designed for looking at space. So we'll look at that a little bit later. Okay, so aperture of 4 inches or 100 millimeters. Number 2, does the telescope come with a red dot or bullseye finder? Okay, so this is a red dot finder. And the reason that this is a requirement is a lot of the finder scopes, where you actually have a finder telescope, are of a quality that's too low to be practical. So as an example, this is a real finder scope. If it's smaller than this, it'll probably be really difficult to be used to help aim the telescope. The telescope needs a finder. I know some telescopes are so cheap they don't even have any finder, and then you're in a lot of trouble. But you're almost in trouble if the finder is not of sufficient quality. And so these little red dot finders, you turn them on, they take 2032 batteries, they display a red dot. Let's see if we can see that here.
Maybe hard with the background.
Hard with the background. Anyway, just make sure you have extra batteries. But they're really, really easy to use. And then we have, let's try this one. Here is an example of a bullseye finder. Yeah, it'll be hard to show how it works, but you basically show a bullseye. This is a Rigel quick finder here. And again, we'll talk about some of this stuff later on. Okay, so that's number 2. Does it come with a red dot finder or bullseye finder? You don't want these little tiny finder scopes. Not a good sign. Okay. Talk to the mic.
Oh, that camera.
Oh, talk to that camera, yeah. I'm trying to read my thing here.
I don't know.
Okay. Good times. Can can the mount move effortlessly left and right and up and down? So this is a problem with a lot of the kid scopes, is the telescopes can't do this. And they can't do this easily. And now, this may not look like it's easy, but you can use these slow motion controls here, and it's pretty easy. So a lot of telescopes that, if it looks like they're on a camera mount instead of a tripod like this, then they probably don't meet that requirement. All right. Can the telescope balance precisely on the mount and stay fixed in place when released? Yeah. So that's another thing about just overall mount quality. Some telescopes, if you're aiming them, they'll flop when you let go. I find this happens a lot with what's called rod and yoke. So some of them, the telescopes you see have a metal bar that basically connects the tube to the mount, and it has a little slow motion control on it. But I find those really sloppy. So those are a red flag to me that the telescope is not really a good design for a beginner. Okay, can the telescope point straight up? And if it's a refractor, does it include a 90-degree diagonal? So a lot of telescopes can't get higher than this. A telescope should be able to go this high. Pointing telescopes high in the sky can be a challenge for a number of reasons. One, your eyepiece is way down here, and what makes it worse is a lot of the telescopes on the market don't come with a 90-degree diagonal. They come with a 45-degree diagonal. So if you're looking at something high in the sky, your head is almost upside down looking into the telescope, and that's not good. You really want a 90-degree diagonal. They look like this. If it's 45 degrees, then not so good. It's actually not 45. It's more like what's 90 plus 45? 135. Yeah, I don't know why they call it 45. Anyway. Yeah, so those are the 5 requirements. Do we have any viewers on
Yeah, you have a comment.
Oh, we have a comment. Yeah, love the channel and your work. The book 110 Things to See with a Telescope is awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, what's his name?
Jacob.
Jacob. Yeah, thanks, Jacob. I have the copy of the book right here. What's been crazy about the book, and this is a book we wrote 2 or 3 years ago, and we knew it was going to be huge, and we knew people would love it. So I called in Chris Vaughn to help me just make it awesome. We called Tim Russ from Star Trek. He plays Tuvok, and he reviewed it and he wrote the foreword for the book. If you're buying a telescope, definitely consider this to go along with it, because it solves the issue of what am I going to point my telescope at, especially after you've exhausted the moon and planets. Yeah, so thanks, Jacob, for liking our book. What's been really cool about this, at least in the United States, is it's basically been half price for the last year. They've got it priced at $21, I think, on Amazon, and the list price is $36, and that's for the hardcover. And so it's been really cool. It's been able to get into a lot of people's hands. But you definitely want to get it now, because at the end of the year, this is actually going to go off the market for a while as it moves over to a different and larger publisher, so that we can get it into more hands. But it will go off the market right after Christmas. So keep an eye out for that, or get it while you can at Amazon's price. Yeah.
You have another comment. Joel says, thanks for doing this. I'm new at telescopes, and it's great finding a community like this.
Oh, thank you so much, Joel.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we really do feel like a community here at Learn to Stargaze. I know there's often a core group of people that sign into these live streams. I don't think I've done one, and it's almost been a year. Yeah. So as background, why don't I do these all the time? Astro Backyard publishes videos a lot more than I do. I'm a full-time grad student. That's taken up a lot of my time. And we're primarily authors, really. And YouTube is our marketing arm. But I think we've been getting really good at it. It's a lot of fun. That's why we do it. It's a service.
We like interacting with you guys.
To our readers. Yeah, you can hear Mrs. Stargaze here. Actually, you should come on camera for a second. We'll just answer some questions like that.
Any more questions?
Yeah. All right, well, we'll just talk. And so we've also got a lot of projects on the go. I'll share my screen in a minute. We might be able to show you some of that. But, we stargaze from the city, but we do visual astronomy. And one of the things we keep recommending is that people find dark skies. And that's been a challenge for us in the city. And finding places to go and test these telescopes effectively. And so we ended up actually buying some land, first and foremost, for the YouTube channel, so that we can actually reliably test these telescopes and, you know, ultimately write better guidebooks. You know, a lot of the time we were just going to the star parties, limiting ourselves to only a few weekends per year of dark skies and trying to do a lot of research in those
short periods of time.
You know, and doing the rest from our backyard. Like if it's clear out, we're usually stargazing from the backyard.
But we do live in a city, so
yeah. So now that we have access to these dark skies, it'll make a big difference. Okay. Yeah, and we realized we ended up buying quite a bit of land, so we're making it eventually into a stargazing park called Stargaze Nova Scotia. So if you want to follow Stargaze Nova Scotia on Facebook, that is how you can follow that. Let's see, laptop and monitor and webcam. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we're trying to fly through this here.
Oh, you got a couple more comments. You got Richard saying R3 junior high schools bought 9 of those scopes around Christmas time. Oh, that's awesome for your review.
Wow.
Thank you so much. They got them for $149.
$149. Awesome. Yeah. I just looked today and like online, they're like $400. So I keep getting texts about people finding them at Costco for quite a bit less. Okay. So basically, we'll walk through some telescopes. If you go to learntostargaze.com, I have this little grid, and I realize that some of these are out of date as the prices have changed. But this was my original, just like, hey, for whatever budget you have and for whatever you're looking at, you know, do you want to look at just moon and planets and be portable, or do you want to be, do you want to focus on deep sky objects, which usually you need a little bit of a larger aperture telescope for, it becomes less portable. Do you want to see it all? And so... and do you need something with go-to capabilities? So I basically have these, 4 columns, and then for every price point, what is the best telescope, that fits what you want to look at, and that meets the 5 requirements I talked about at the beginning of this video. Anyway, yeah, so definitely check out learntostargaze.com. Here's some progress on the land, the land that we got for our stargazing site. I think we went a little overkill. Need to slow down a bit here in our development. But yeah, so you can find information about Learn Stargaze or Stargaze Nova Scotia here. You can watch Mrs. Stargaze here, the tour of the property. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Yeah. So I think if there was one telescope I'd recommend this Father's Day that is probably the most fun beginner telescope on the market right now, it's one of these StarSense scopes. And I say one of these, I mean the ones that say DX on them. The ones that say LT do not meet the requirements for a beginner telescope. They have issues, but basically the issues are they just don't meet those criteria. $400 is definitely a lot for a gift, and I don't have it up here, but you can generally, if we go over to B&H Photo here, sometimes you can search their used telescope page. I don't know how to get to it directly here. Maybe I can just do it here. Used telescope. Yeah. Anyway, they have a used telescope page. I have a shortcut for it, but I can't access that right now. Anyway, so sometimes these are, if you get them refurbished, they're in the 200s. But this is this is the Omni AZ I just showed, the one that's behind me here. Except it has the StarSense system with it. And if anyone doesn't know what this is, it's really just incredible. You put your iPhone on it. It uses your iPhone's camera and a mirror to constantly take pictures of the sky. And what it does is it makes sure that your telescope is always pointed in exactly the right spot, assuming you've aligned it correctly, which really only takes about 30 seconds. And it doesn't matter if you carry the scope across the backyard or whatever. It stays aligned. It's really cool. Which is often a problem. If you're at star parties and you're sharing a telescope with their friends, if you have another type of go-to scope and someone like kicks it or moves the telescope when they're not supposed to, you need to realign it all over again, and usually that takes about 10 minutes versus this, which just stays aligned. Okay. Here's the most popular telescope that people recommend to beginners. Again, these prices have really crept up over the years. This used to be $399 before the pandemic. You know, but again, you can get them used generally for pretty good prices. There's a StarSense version of this scope. I think it's $750 or $799 or something in the United States, which is awesome. We've got a YouTube video on that as well. But with these scopes, these are basically you can see planets with these. You can see deep sky objects. You've got lots of aperture. You can definitely find everything in 110 things to see with a telescope and see it exactly as is shown in the pictures. Assuming you have dark skies. So for example, every page has a picture of the object. We tried to simulate what it would look like in this telescope. That was sort of our benchmark. Okay. It's just, if we don't have any questions, I'll just keep flying through these here.
Well, Jacob wants to know, when do you sleep? You do grad school too.
When do I sleep? Well, I mean, our full-time job is primarily the books and managing sort of the publishing company.
He does sleep. Just
yeah, I do
not
sleep.
much.
Yeah. Anyway, it's weird. The green screen is all messed up. I think after I held up the book, it redid its white balance. Maybe I'll slide that.
Yeah. Now everything's fuzzy. Nope. Still doesn't like it.
OBS. All right. Here, let me just see if we can. I guess we'll just live with it. Okay. Yeah.
It's snowing.
So yeah, it's snowing behind it. Everyone else has the wild. We had our wildfires last week. Now everyone's getting them this week. We couldn't even go to our land. It was so well. One, the government came and said you can't go in the forest, and most of our land is forest. So we basically just chained it off. Okay.
We have a new question. What do you think of the Spectrum Optical Instruments series of low-priced telescopes?
Let's look it up and see.
Spectrum Optical Instruments.
Is it this? Let's see. Whoa, I've never seen that. That's funky. Spectrum Optical Instruments. Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, a lot of these telescopes are ones that I guess the company just buys them on Alibaba and then puts their own brand on it. So like I've used this before under the Explore Scientific brand. Yeah. So if you, the thing about these ones, if you only have $100 and you don't think you're ever going to get more than $100, this would be a sufficient telescope to see the moon with, and maybe the rings of Saturn. They don't meet the aperture requirement, and that plays into it. And then it was a fine line with this one. So it fails the aperture requirement, but it's also kind of fails the does it stay in the same place and move effectively as well. Borderline. So yeah, it's not one I would recommend. They do have a Mac, which is interesting, for 110. That'd be interesting to test. You know, it's got the slow motion controls.
Looks like they all have the slow motion controls.
Yeah, they do. It's similar to the one we tested. Oh, that's funny. That's a total Celestron knockoff. But this one would be Bird Jones by the looks of it. If you look at it, they'll probably say, huh, no, it's not. Yeah, it'd be interesting to test. Yeah, I haven't heard of this one. But again, it looks like they're just buying bulk off Alibaba and putting their own brand on it. Which doesn't mean it's terrible. It just is what it is. Yeah, this mount, because I've used this mount before, it's a little bit rickety. And so, you know, it's probably not an instrument that you'd keep for years and years. It would be one to find out if, you know, you're wanting for more is probably what it would do. Okay.
It says they have a 102 on an EQ mount as well. I didn't see I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, yeah, no, that's a classic no mount. Yeah, these are not this violates my for beginners up down left right requirement because these EQ mounts are really challenging to use because you'll see an object in the sky and you want to push the telescope to it and it won't go because the axis doesn't rotate in that direction. You have to follow the declination and the right ascension, and um, you know, it can be done. It's just the fun factor is important with a telescope, and that's why this telescope is the one I'd recommend because it's just really fun and make the StarSense system after you get it going. It makes it easy to find stuff. And there's things there's things with budget telescopes that just make them less fun. Like this mount is just one of them. Here's the Mac. The Mac might actually be interesting to try. But anyway. Yeah.
What do you get for a dad who already has several APODs?
APODs. Dylan! What's up, Dylan?
I don't know.
APODs, astronomy photos of the day. I feel like so Dylan is one of the all-stars of and one of my idols he's like one of the YouTube astronomy gods that us small YouTubers look up to. And so he's on the astrophotography side. So this our channel for the most part is visual astronomy, and he's got some pretty funny videos about that, people with beards and talking like Galileo. So astronomy photo of the day, I feel like a case of beer, a pet tarantula. Dylan's he's in Australia. Does Australia, they have tarantulas? I don't know. Absolutely. They have got every poisonous animal there. That's a good question. I think if you're getting astronomy photo of the day, then you're there's not a lot you can get for dad that doesn't violate the rule of five. Dylan's rule of 500, which means anything under $500 is crap. That's not my rule. That's his. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Yeah, but if your dad already has a telescope and stuff, and they're into visual astronomy, not astrophotography, and not winning astrophoto of the day, one of the most popular things that I've been recommending for people that just want to see planets, they already have a telescope, but they don't have eyepieces. These Celestron NeXYZ eyepieces, the 5mm one. If you've got a short tube refractor like the Omni, get a eyepiece specific to viewing planets, like the XL. I don't have any of those big honking ones. Yeah, the other neat thing about these scopes, like even this Costco scope here, yeah, it's still in a snowstorm there, is that you can remove the diagonal and put in a 2-inch diameter diagonal. So that's a pretty big upgrade. It's about $150 for a basic one of those. But then you can get these big honkin' eyepieces that give you these incredible 100-degree field of view, like completely immersive views of the night sky. And I've tried it in this scope, and it just turns this scope into what feels like a multi-$1,000 scope, which is kind of fun. So that's an upgrade you can do there. If they don't have a finder, or they're just using a basic finder, you can upgrade to a Telrad or a Rigel Quick Finder. More questions?
A question from Marty. Is the Explore Scientific First Light 114 decent for adults as well as kids?
So the thing about the 114, I'll bring up a picture of it here, is I think it has a contrast issue. So I used to love this little scope, and the great thing is it's just so easy to use, and our kids can use it just effortlessly, and it's got a wide field of view. It's not Bird Jones. But when I compared it against the refractor, which is smaller, the clarity in this refractor was so much better. And what I think is going on here is that, oh my gosh, the secondary mirror here at the front is blocking enough of the light that it's reducing the contrast enough that it's just pulling those deep sky objects out of view when you would otherwise be able to see them. At least in skies that are light polluted. So, but for kids, the ease of use of this one is fantastic. Planets and the moon have been totally fine with this. And again, deep sky objects are okay. It's just when you compare it against a similar refractor telescope, that's where the refractor really comes out ahead. Yeah.
We have a question. What about the pre-order ZWO C-Star S50?
C-Star S50. I'm gonna have to Google that. Is that computerized one? Mm-hmm. Let's see. What was it again? ZWO
C-Star SEE.
Oh, SEE.
Yeah. Star
S50. Oh yeah. I want to get a demo of this. See what. So this is their IntelliScope or EV scope. These ones that are just, you have the app, you set the telescope down and it aligns itself. And these are really neat. They're like really awesome party tricks. So the resolution of the photos you get isn't enough to get astronomy photo of the day. At least I don't believe it is. It's sort of like a mount for your iPhone, taking a really long exposure and just making sure it's on target. But the technology in these are really great. So, I've used the I think it was the EV scope, the one I borrowed from Cyan Proctor. The really cool thing about that one is that's the one that actually has the pretend eyepiece. So you look in the eyepiece, but you're actually looking at a screen. And the camera or the telescope is taking photos about every second, and it's stacking them. And the longer the telescope stays on target, the better the image gets. And this is doing the same thing, except this one, it probably just spits out to an iPhone directly, and there's not a fake eyepiece. So they're fun to go and bomb around the night sky, and you can actually see the colors in the nebula and galaxies, and if there's something like that supernova in M101 that was there visible last week, might still be visible. These things will pull it up. You'll be able to see that. And so, yeah, it's sort of this weird middle ground between astrophotography and visual astronomy. I haven't owned one. They haven't sent me one. But, yeah, it'll be neat to test out. But, yeah, it's not eyeballs to, or whatever you call that, photons to eyeballs. Which is like the pure stargazing, but it's also not really astrophotography either, because you're not getting photos that would look good in a magazine or anything. It can't be upgraded either. And it's aperture limited, so your aperture determines your resolution. So this would really be quite wide in terms of a field, and you probably wouldn't really get high definition on the rings of Saturn either, because your aperture is just so small. Yeah. All right. Time check here. We'll stay on for about another 20 minutes here if we have questions. We can walk through some other telescopes. We good on questions? Dylan said he wants beer?
Yep, Dylan wants beer.
All right.
I feel like I lost a couple of
All right. I've actually had people say, hey, I'm shopping for my dad. My budget's $2,000.
Wow. That's a lucky dad.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of all the questions I've gotten. And typically this is the one I go to if they're not looking to do astrophotography, looking for visual astronomy. These 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain telescopes are your workhorses. And in terms of, the telescope that you use the most is the best telescope. And these ones have an internal battery that lasts quite a while. And then they can also be connected to an iPad, and you basically just tap on the sky map and it goes to it. There's quite a bit of modifications you would need to do to get this to take pictures of deep sky objects. It's actually Hyperstar compatible, which means you can put a $1,000 adapter here, and then put on your, $1,000 to $2,000 astro camera. So you can also put it on a wedge, and I think it does track well enough for astrophotography, but you might as well just get a designated astrophotography rig if you're going that route. So, another question I get all the time, let's see if I have it up here, is, hey, I'm looking for a small telescope and I would like to move into astrophotography later. And there's a trend right now to go sort of wide, like not deep sky, like Dylan is all about galaxies and the Carina Nebula and tons of magnification for his astrophotos. But the trend these days is wide, large nebulas, big swaths of the sky with low focal lengths. And so having one of these mounts, like the Star Adventurer, is how you would get into that. And so you could use this mount for visual observation with almost whatever small telescope you wanted. But to move up to astrophotography, it's really easy, because then you just put on your, popular one would be the Sharp Star 61, for example. And this is one that I use and get just really great wide field images of the sky. And I use this for what's called electronically assisted observing as well. So if I'm at a star party and it's for a school or the general public, then I'll just project the images onto an iPad. And I'm basically just using this telescope on a mount like this. I use the AZ GTI, which is sort of a previous generation of this, but it's got the same specifications.
I have a question about the 90-degree diagonal that you recommended.
Yeah.
Is it the Bad or Bader? I'm not sure how you say that. 90-degree diagonal that you recommended.
So there's just a whole bunch of them. So like here's one. Here's a 2-inch one by Celestron. Like this would be amazing. Yep. So there's a whole bunch. It's just a mirror. These ones that don't have a prism in it. They're not image direct or anything. It just, yeah.
So does the type of diagonal matter, or is it more?
So for the upgrade, you're looking for the 2-inch one. Okay. Yeah. And then that enables you to get the big 2-inch eyepieces. Yeah, these big guys, big wide angle. You can move up to this is the fanciest eyepiece on the market, the Teleview Ethos.
That's insane.
Yeah, so this is what we use at the university, for example. Yep. Oh man, 55 millimeters. That's crazy wide angle. Oh, except it's pretty narrow field of view. Anyway, it's just a Plössl. Whatever. Yeah. Yeah. So
he's thinking about what he wants for Father's Day.
I know. Well, so our next video that we're going to do is going to be sponsored by All-Star Telescope. They're not sponsoring this, but this is a Canadian company, and we're going to do an eyepiece video. So they're going to send me a whole bunch of eyepieces that I will get to test out. Yeah. So All-Star is in Canadian dollars. So if you're shopping in American dollars, basically you get a 40% discount. Yeah, so if the exchange rate may actually work in your favor for shopping with All-Star. Never know. But, okay. More questions.
Yes. A couple questions. Your thoughts on the SVBONY?
Oh, SV Bunny?
Yeah.
Yeah. So most of those, SV Bunny, yeah, there's a ton of them. Most of those don't meet the minimum requirements. So like if we go here, that's not SV Bunny, but a lot of them look like that. Oh, well, okay. So here you have their premium line, which I haven't tested them, but hypothetically these ones, so APO, apochromatic, which this means that they bring all the wavelengths of light into at the same focal plane. And that's what you need to not get like funny looking stars. And so these are astrophotography telescopes here. And they could hypothetically be great. I don't know if this one looks pretty inexpensive. So yeah, but there's two things that generally make these telescopes good for, or super high quality for taking photos and stuff. And you can also break that rule about 4 inches of aperture when you go up to this level of quality, that's below 4 inches of aperture. and that's the APO optics or triplet optics, which just tells you that you're bringing in all the wavelengths of light at the same focal plane, and then ED glass. So the quality of the glass can get rid of a lot of the chromatic aberration.
What does ED stand for?
Gosh, I just looked that up. Just the D is dispersion. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, actually, it's weird. I feel like in the past, yeah, most of their telescopes look like this. So I call these bird feeder telescopes. And like this is an example of a telescope that breaks all 5 rules. So smaller than 4 inches of aperture, a finder scope that probably doesn't work. It doesn't have a 90-degree diagonal. It doesn't stay where you put it. It doesn't stay where you put it when you let go, and it can't point up. So it like fails everything. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, that's cool. I forgot about these astrophotography grade scopes that they're making. Or at least buying on Alibaba and putting their brand on. But anyway.
What is a good affordable lens for planetary viewing that you can use with glasses?
So that you can use with glasses, so that depends on your why am I blanking on eye relief. So that comes down to the eyepiece you're using. So eye relief is the distance.
That's what he's asking.
Yeah. So that's dependent on your eyepiece. So if you look at this one, this eyepiece here, let me go back to this webcam. Okay. I feel like we need to like show.
It's weird that it's still funky.
Like, if we put our whiteboard here, will it re-white balance for us? Maybe a little bit. Okay. Because we've got sufficient lighting in this room. So you can see this eyepiece here, we can screw it in and out, and you're changing the distance that, so here you might use for your eye and it puts your pupil in the right spot. But if we screw it in, then it allows your glasses to get closer. You put almost your eyeglasses up against the glass. So this is like an XL eyepiece, and so that would enable it. The eyepieces that come with the telescope often don't have that eye relief. So if you like to stargaze with glasses, then upgrading the eyepieces to something with a large eye relief number would be the way to go. Oh wow, I can see the chat on my screen now.
Oh, nice.
Look at that. Okay.
You don't need me.
Yeah. Telescopes for planets, though, for planets specifically, that's where you want high focal lengths that give them high natural magnification. To get resolution, you want aperture. But a lot of people like the Mac telescopes for your basic budget Mac Suta telescope. Yeah. Just for entry level planet scopes. But you also want to keep an eye on your aperture as well, because otherwise you're not going to see details. So like for example, this would be a basic one with enough aperture. We're hitting our aperture target here. Oh wait, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry.
Go back to screen share.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a 105 millimeter Muscatov. So this one would have sufficient aperture. Hey, look, they're advertising my book. Awesome. Sorry, it's just fun to see my book here.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is the C90, and this is again a great almost pocket telescope. We're breaking the 4-inch rule, but you're making up for it in quality. Yeah. So. And the thing about these, you have to buy the mount separately. So you would buy B&H Photo has these little, what are they called? Celestron heavy duty tripod. Yeah. So you could put it on like a basic tripod like this. If you're on a budget, you have to modify this a little bit by putting an adapter on there. And so that would be a way to do it on a budget. Let's see what they have for telescope mounts here. Yeah, it is. I mean, if you do like the equatorial mounts, that's actually not bad for I mean, especially price wise. But I don't know. Unless I'm doing astrophotography, I don't like these the EQ mounts. AZ.
Good question. Don't you want to find above 17 millimeter eye relief as a general rule for glasses wearers?
So that's something I would need to look into. So I don't wear glasses when I stargaze, but maybe that is a good rule of thumb. Yeah. So if that's what you Google, then that's probably right, because you're getting advice from other people that stargaze with glasses.
John wears glasses, but he takes them off.
Yeah, I take them off when I stargaze. So people that stargaze with glasses.
Which means when I look in after him, the focus is terrible.
Yeah, we have very different prescriptions.
And so contacts.
Yeah, I don't know if they some. I'm curious if they list the eye relief on these. In terms of the specs.
I think there are enough people who use glasses.
Yeah, 60 millimeter eye relief. Yeah, so it's close to the amount. I wonder if there's a not as good. Like the Mead eyepiece I have is terrible eye relief. So like, would they advertise? And I think this one too. But then again, like with this one, sometimes you can take the plastic off or the little eye cup. Let's check for eye relief on this. 15 to 18, I guess, depending on the zoom. Yeah. Let's go. I'm trying to find an example of one that would be not good for whatever reason. Now, Televiews are known for their eye relief, so let's see what this one has. 15. Yeah.
Seems to be kind of standard.
Maybe it has a large exit pupil too. I don't know. So anyway, yeah. So 17 for glasses seems like a good rule of thumb. I guess if you see anything like 10 millimeters or less, which I haven't seen here, then you know, maybe it wouldn't be a good option there. 22 millimeters of eye relief in the Explore Scientific. Yeah. All right. So where were we? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So here's a telescope that we reviewed, and I call these like the telescope you keep for life telescope. And usually this one's not, you can get it for less than this, but anyway, at least you used to. Upgrading this to a red dot finder, or you know, putting it on a different mount, or a lot of modifications, but the core telescope here, this is the Skywatcher 120, and it's same goes for the Skywatcher 102, which looks almost identical. You know, they're just telescopes that are just really solidly built, and they look good. And so if you're shopping for a dad and he wants a telescope that'll look good in the living room and that he'll have like for a long time, these like Skywatcher Star Travels I think are just really pretty. And I mean, it's a different the good lookingness of your telescope is a bit of a different requirement, but you know, I really had a lot of fun with this one, and you know, and you could upgrade it to the big 2-inch diagonals and everything as well, and I just found it to be really solid. Yeah. Anyways, this is All Star Telescope. They sponsor us occasionally. It's run by a guy named Nicholas, and he's really picky about what he sells for the most part. So again, take advantage of that Canadian exchange rate. The American dollar is crazy strong right now. So yeah. So if I converted this to American dollars, where's my phone here?
Question.
Yeah.
We're done doing your math.
Here, 742 divided by 1.36. So this is an 8-inch Dobsonian for $545. So that's, you know, assuming your shipping is reasonable, that's a better deal than it is to buy in the States. So yeah, definitely compare with All Star Telescope for shopping around.
Mounts with slow motion all seem like short tripods. How good are the tall alt-az tripods with the fluid heads and damping for astronomy?
So I'm not sure what he means by tall. I would need an example. Yeah. So in terms of the beginner telescopes, I'm pretty much just used to this one is the only one I can think of off the top of my head. Go back to webcam here. Again, sorry about the poor image quality. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, it's weird that it never posts itself.
Yeah, it's high enough for me. It goes pretty high. You still use it standing up. But
we don't have the legs extended on
yeah. I mean, that's a good tip in general is you should stargaze sitting down, especially with refractors. It's just a whole lot easier. If you're stargazing by yourself, just use a chair. And that's also a good gift if you're
a stargazing chair.
A stargazing chair is, and you can get zero gravity chairs if you're not even using a telescope. Oops, let's go over here.
189 centimeter tall tripod.
Yeah.
That sounds tall.
Yeah, I'm not super. There's some Vixen. Let's go to B&H. Vixen. I'm trying to think of other AZ tripods that I can think of. Vixen made one. Yeah. So I've never used any of these guys besides the ones that come with my telescopes. This almost looks like the one that comes with the AZ GTI a little bit. Yeah, I mean, these are super stable. So like if you want to upgrade from a beginner tripod to one of these, it'd be a good upgrade. I don't know if it's where I'd put my money right away, but yeah, if you already have a telescope you like and your tripod is shaky, then that would be a definite upgrade. Vixen mounts. Let's see here. Yeah.
I don't know what a fluid head is.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the fluid head is either. Just let me know in the comments and I will research it because I probably should know.
Or you could type it into your Google.
Fluid head. Oh, these things. Yeah. So like I think of these as like for pro camera tripods and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Just so that you can get fluid left, right, up, down movement. Yeah. So I don't know, for telescopes I call these the panhandle or pan mounts. Yeah.
Those are great for cameras.
Yeah, Jen went to film school. She could tell you. Yeah, if this would work fine for a telescope.
It's both a tripod for both terrestrial and astronomy use.
Yeah, so you might run into issues of not being able to point it high enough. But yeah, and obviously you don't track as well. So the way I like to usually use the telescope is I just push it by the telescope itself for the most part, unless it has slow motion controls like this. And it'd be hard for me. I haven't used this one, but maybe if you could loosen it up enough so the telescope is in perfect balance and you can just push it around and have it stay where it lands when you let go. That's what's important to me. Yep. All right.
It's nice fine tuning with the slow motion controls.
Yeah, slow motion controls are on an AZ mount are really great. On an EQ mount, not so fun. I mean, that's a good thing to point out. If you just Google telescope, like almost all these telescopes fail the requirements of what makes a good beginner telescope. Like the first one we come across here that I actually use and like is the NexStar. Whether this is the best bang for your buck or the most fun you can have with a telescope for $600, debatable. Yeah, all of these telescopes are big no-nos, And here's an example of the LT series of StarSense. Although the funny thing about this is, depending on the price of the other telescopes, it's almost worth it to just salvage this scope for the StarSense. So that's what I did. We did a video about that, where we pulled the StarSense system off this telescope and moved it over to a Dobsonian. So in that case, it was worth it. But these telescopes have the this rod and yoke system. That's really kind of a pain. It sort of takes the fun out of stargazing. Yeah. Oh, now that they're showing up on Amazon now. Yeah. So this is like an example of what a lot of people call the hobby killer because these EQ mounts are they're just not fun. That's really all I can say about it. You get it outside and you're like, why am I not having fun? It's like, well, there's a resistance. You see your target and the telescope doesn't want to go there. And I guess that's what makes it kind of not fun. If you get really good at using the mount or you're into sketching or something, you can just turn that one knob to keep after you get your target, keep it in the same spot, then, you might find it fun, but, I don't find these particularly fun until you get into astrophotography, and then they are. And then but for that I use, the EQ6R Pro. But even if I'm using an AZ mount, for the most part, it's this one.
EQ mount?
An EQ mount, sorry. An EQ mount. It's this one. This is my little mount. Or if I'm using a lightweight telescope, I still use the AZ GTI. And I got this, I just put it on a wedge, added a counterweight. We have a video on all the parts you need to buy to modify this to get it to do astrophotography. But, recently, especially with the new ASI Air, it's just been flawless for astrophotography. See if they sell ASI Air in here. ASI Air. Oop, they don't. So, really, ASI Air. So the ASI Air is a little computer that sits on top of your telescope, and it connects the mount and the camera and all together. And this I think, if I'm doing astrophotography, this is how I'm doing it. Yeah, I'm doing it. It's even with, I have the mini and the regular one though, and it just takes the stress out of it. It's not, I think, what Dylan would use to get an apod, but yeah, and again, it's the fun factor for me of getting an image showing up on my phone right away is really fun. And you can do what's called live stacking. If you're doing astrophotography, you typically take 4 types of images. You take your light frames, your darks, your biases, and your flats. And with this one, you do the calibration frames before you take your light frames, which are of the target, and it puts them all together before you see the image. So the first time you see the image, it's a completed image. And then you just take more and more images, it stacks them on top, and you're always looking at the final image. And there's almost no file management to do, versus having a laptop and dealing with hundreds of images just to get one photo. It sort of replaces all that, which is pretty cool. So, yeah. Anyway, this is good. I hope this helps people for their choosing stuff for dad for Father's Day. I think if I were to do a top 5 things, let's say you had a budget of $300, it would be see if Costco has the Omni AZ. If they already have the telescope, 110 things to see with a telescope. Almost with any telescope, you want to upgrade your eyepieces. So you would upgrade one for planets. I usually, if the telescope is a low focal length, I would get, this 5mm XL. If you have a telescope with a long focal length, then I would just use your Plössl 25mm Plössl with a Barlow, or get one of these. These are a lot of fun. These little zoom eyepieces by Celestron. Upgrading your finder to a Rigel quick finder. And I didn't have one here, but the Celestron NeXYZ for wow, did I ever type that in wrong? NeXYZ. Yeah. For taking photos with your cell phone. There's really no other low stress way to do it. The other cell phone mounts just really don't work that good. This is pretty much the only one I found actually work reliably. And I got it for $39. This is, again, another Canadian website. But, yeah. I got mine at Canadian Tire. $39, I think. $39.49. Anyway, less than this. But then we did have a pandemic. Okay.
Bowhead31 from New Jersey says it's too smoky to go stargazing tonight.
I know.
I'm so sorry.
And I
you
think
guys
it's
are getting the smoke now.
yeah, it was pretty horrible for us. Yeah. Well, if you want to follow along with everything that's going on with us, check out you know, the Stargaze Nova Scotia tab of our website. We'll keep updating this with progress on our land here. And if you're ever in Canada and in Nova Scotia, definitely see if we have any events when we finally start having events. We're still trying to figure that out. At Learn to Stargaze here.
Question your thoughts on the Skywatcher Star Travel 120 F5AZ refractor telescope for casual viewing terrestrial.
The Skywatcher. Didn't we just talk about that one? Which one is it?
Skywatcher Star Travel 120?
Oh, yeah, that's the one we just talked about.
Wait, which one was that? I can't keep track.
Oh. Yeah. The Star Travel 120. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. We're almost done here. Any remaining questions, get them in.
For casual viewing, terrestrial and night.
Yeah. No.
You like that one.
Yeah, I like it.
I recognize it now that I see it.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. This is the one I did if you look up the video, well, I did the video on the 102. But basically the same thing. This one just has more aperture, which means more resolution. Yeah, lots of fun. I put a DSLR and got some great bird photos with it. Yep. All good. Anyway, I'm gonna call it. It's late. It looks like I'm in a snowstorm for some reason. Yep. Oh, and you can follow us on Facebook and everything. Learn to Stargaze, or if you're in Canada, Stargaze Nova Scotia. So here we're gonna switch.
I see a big issue with the 120.
Is chromatic aberration is an issue on. It depends what you mean by issue. Watch the video I did on that telescope, because you see the chromatic aberration in the video. I used a NeXYZ in the eyepiece. You can see it on the moon. You can see it on Jupiter. But, you know, after you're past those objects and you're looking at deep sky objects and everything, that's, you know, it doesn't show up on nebula and galaxies and stuff, right? So, yeah. If you don't mind it on the moon and Jupiter, then chromatic aberration is not a big deal. Okay. All right. Well, Jen, why don't you come in and say goodbye to everyone? She's been here diligently and reading all your comments.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Kind of a wild live stream. I decided to swear off coffee for the day, and so I've had this like raging headache all day, which has been
going great. Yeah.
Been interesting. Tylenol, and whatever.
Yeah. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Too. And again, just comment on any Learn to Stargaze video with your questions, and I do try and check all the comments. And it's interesting, the comments, if you reply to my reply, it then goes to my email. And so sometimes it takes me a little longer to respond, but I do try and get to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, happy Father's Day, everyone. And
thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Oh, Dylan. Good night, Dylan. All right. Stop streaming. There we go.